Flint Hills, home of the Cats and Dogs Studio. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Hello. First off, I am not Tim Fitzgerald. I am Big B, Brien Hanley. And this is Ryan Wallace from Go Powercat. This is K-State Insiders post-game. Big win tonight for the Kansas State Wildcats, Ryan. Look, a lot of things that we could say about this game. The first thing is, it was a clean game. They played tough. They played physical. The defense had a big bounce back. I just thought it was a really good – I mean, obviously there's going to be some things that we talk about that weren't as good, but
sure,
let's not nitpick a whole lot here. I thought it was a good football game by Kansas State.
I mean, you go away from the opening drive, Brian.
Yep.
Before we started, I actually tweeted this out. I went back because I was like, it sure seemed like that first drive was kind of more killer than anything else that Arizona did. So that defensive performance, lowest total yards Arizona's had in well over a year, but 73 of their 324 for the night came on that opening drive, which was their only touchdown, their only score. So that means 251 total yards on their other 8 offensive drives. That's like, I'm terrible at math, so I got on the calculator. That's about 31 yards of possession, Brian, against McMillan, Fafita. And I mean, again, they didn't have to go super deep, but I'm telling you from watching these guys, like Burnett, the tight end's a good player. Lamonius Craig's a good player. Patterson's a good player. To hold that kind of offense to those numbers is just a ridiculous performance by Joe Klanderman's side.
Absolutely. The one thing about it is we're going to bring our man Cole Carmody in here. He is in and ready to go. What's going on,
Jump
Cole?
in, baby.
The thing about it is it's even worse, Ryan, when you think about get rid of the garbage yards that Arizona got once the game was actually over. You get rid of that.
Yeah.
And the defensive performance is even better. It was just one of those things where we were all worried. They hadn't played well, but I know you had talked about it. I had talked about it. Look, I think we were only seeing 25 to 35% of what Kansas State was going to do offensively and defensively. This was going to be a game where they had to open up things, open up some things for Avery, do a lot of different things in coverage. On the defensive side of the ball, and they did it, and it looked really good, guys. It looked really, really good.
I'll tell you what, I still don't think this offense, knowing what K-State's blueprint is and knowing that, again, it's still kind of a work in progress with some of these new guys that they're breaking in, I don't think this offense is ever going to, light the world on fire. But all you want is efficiency.
Yep.
And we got loads of efficiency tonight. Connor Riley was cooking. The stuff that he was able to do, there's still some things in terms of substitution patterns that you'd like to see maybe go a different direction. But I still think we're only in week 3. They're still trying to figure out who works when and where. And so offensively, it might not be the firepower, I don't know, the pizzazz that maybe people were looking for from this offense. But at the same time, again, like I was saying, I don't know if this offense was ever going to be, Lincoln Riley-ish or Art Briles-ish. It's just not what Connor Riley does. But what he can do is slice and dice you with just so much schematic. It's like an orchestra watching it, really. And tonight, when it plays out the way it's supposed to, it's a thing of beauty. And defensively, Brian, again, I can't applaud Joe Klanderman enough. Outside of the opening drive, the adjustments that were made were phenomenal.
Yep.
Yeah. So first of all, hello, fellas.
Hey.
My experience of this game is vastly different than you two's experience of this game. For those that were watching at home, you were doing one better than me. There was quite the bit of intrigue. I think this is such a fascinating night because not only was K-State able to walk away with a win, but it was also, as we've talked about, that big storyline on a Friday night. And Wally, I know you guys are going to get into the game, but before we kind of talk about that, there was a lot of high school recruits on social media that were actually at the game there pregame. I was wondering about that the whole night. I know that Manhattan and Junction City had moved their game to Thursday, but I mean, what a performance for those who were able to watch. It's just an absolute beatdown, and that's always a great thing. We talked about Big B. You talked about being on national television. When you're on national television, you put a performance like that together, along with some recruits being there, that's going to leave an impression.
Right. I mean, look, outside of as long as everybody got out of the game injury-free, which they seem to, I mean, everybody's going to have some bumps and bruises. We get out of that injury-free. I'm not sure how it became, or it gets to be a better night than what it actually was. I'm really not. On national television, that kind of performance, everybody is talking about how good Arizona was. And I kept saying, I'm not sure how Arizona is going to handle the physicality. I think they're going to have the skill positions. They're going to be able to move the football, throw it around the lot. But coming into the Big 12, playing Kansas State specifically, how are they going to handle the physicality? And I'm sorry, guys, they didn't handle it. They Kansas State physically beat them up on both sides of the football. Yes, they got some yards. I understand that. But as you went over it, Ryan, a lot of those were in the first drive of the game. And again, you take away the garbage yards on basically their last two drives when the football game was already over, it's even worse. So, look, this was a dominating performance, a performance that I think, number one, can give them confidence, gives fans confidence, gives coaches confidence, gives everybody confidence. But more importantly, the nation saw it. And it gives them confidence to talk about, okay, you know what? We said these things about Kansas State. They're pretty good. They're a pretty good football team. And I think that matters, Ryan. I think that's something that actually matters.
Well, I think another thing is, if you're Arizona, I know that they were a little beat up at times. Like Tacario Davis, I think played that opening series and then left. But like some of the injuries that they had, I don't know if they would have made a difference. Tacario Davis is their stud cornerback. And I don't think, having a stud cornerback really changes a whole lot. Maybe he comes up and makes a tackle or two in the flat, but again, not a huge, a loss that I think made a difference in the game. They got Rhino back. I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name, but one of their, I think is your left tackle. He hadn't played for like the first, or I guess the second game, Northern Arizona. He was back. So, and Baker was back. So their offensive line was as healthy as it's been since week 1 when they beat New Mexico. Arizona had a lot going for them in terms of health. Johnson, the safety, I think was a considerable loss. So you talk to Arizona fans and they're probably going to point that out. But again, Brian, like how much is a cornerback and a safety really going to help you in a game that was this physical from K-State's offense? Probably not much.
Exactly. I'm not sure it's going to help you much at all. Look, like I said, Kansas State beat them up physically on both sides of the football. It was great to see. Now, let's talk about, and let's just start from the very beginning of the game. Opening drive was very impressive by Arizona. It just was. I mean, that was a big-time drive. They ran it. They got whatever they wanted to on the ground. It seemed like they were running some kind of an inside zone that they kept bouncing outside, and Kansas State couldn't keep contain on that. And it was driving me crazy. And then they were throwing the ball to McMillan. I mean, look, the guy's that good. I mean, he's that good. And again, I'm not even saying that he's the greatest route runner in the world, because I don't believe that he is. He runs routes, he gets open, the ball's there, and he just makes the catch. And that's the difference. It's not like he's getting, 3 and 4 yards of separation. That's not what's happening. He's to put it in simpler terms, he's just better than some of the guys. If you're going to one-on-one coverage them, that's just what it is. Sometimes college guys are just better, and he's just better.
And Big B, on that note, before you continue on, I know that we talked about in the insiders, a little bit on the K-State insiders, talking about how McMillan is just going to be that guy who's just going to get his yards. I think I made the analogy to Michael Jordan on the Bulls. Like, that MJ was going to get his. It's a matter of, can you stop everybody else? And, just by looking at the stats, it's pretty obvious. You go 11 for 138, but then the next guy has 75 yards receiving. And then after that, the third highest receiver has 19 yards. And so,
and it's even misleading with the 75 because 3 of those catches came when the game was already over.
Right.
So, and I mentioned it on the Insiders, and I was halfway joking. I said, if Kansas State holds McMillan to 150 yards or less, K-State will be fine. Well, lo and behold, they held them to less, and it was an absolute blowout. I thought it was a masterful job on the defensive side of the ball from everybody, just the physicality on what was going on. Look, you can't be prouder. Look, we can get into, and we will get into some of the things that weren't good, but after that opening drive, it was just a complete shutdown. They got some yards, don't get me wrong, but when they had to tighten up, they did. That big interception, I think, was a big deal. I just think it was. Massive. I mean, it was a huge deal because and it was a great play. That's the thing. It was a great play. So I just thought Kansas State did a really good job of fighting back in this game and saying, look, we're fine, guys. We're not perfect, but we're fine, and we're still a really good football team like we all thought we were at the beginning.
I was going to say, I think Kellis Robinette was the one. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, did you know that Mike Epps is a K-State fan? We have Mike Epps in the YouTube
I was going to say, Mike Epps is in the freaking chat right now. Tell me that's Mike. Tell me that's the real Mike Epps.
Mike. Come on, Mike. Anyways, go ahead, Wally.
No, I was going to say credit to Kellis Robinette because he pointed out accurately, like the distance that Keenan Garber traveled to get that interception. Like that was a hustle play. He made the right read and everything, but like that was also a hustle play because he covered a lot of ground to make that interception.
He did.
I was thinking to myself, like Teteroa McMillan. I'm with you, Brian. Like I question a little bit about like what he'll be in the NFL just because he doesn't have like incredible separation speed and but in saying that, like some of the stuff that he's able to do, I'm like, is this the best receiver that K-State's gone against like individually since like CeeDee Lamb? And he's not, I'm not comparing him to CeeDee Lamb, but I'm
I get it.
Probably. And yet again, like, I guess my point when I say that is like, they don't see receivers like this all that often, especially a guy like Keenan Garber that was playing freaking DB, a year and a half ago.
Right.
And now he plays unbelievable defense on Teteroa. Even in the opening drive, like I thought Keenan was still really solid. Jacob Parrish pitched in as well. The job that the corners did and the safeties did, even coming up in run support too, Brian, I don't know. There's not a single part of the defense that I can really like nitpick a whole lot. I think during the game, the only nitpicking thing that I had, and again, I'll explain why it's really not that big of an issue against a team like Arizona. The only nitpick that I really had on the defense all along was that it seemed like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like there were some instances where their run fits were like a second or like a foot late in terms of like, you would expect Austin Moore to be there like a step quicker. But I think the reason is because with Noah Fifita, you can't afford to guess. You can't afford to not make the right call. So I think they paused a little bit longer than they typically do. And so again, in saying that, they probably could have fewer yards and fewer possessions because a couple of the times that I was thinking, Austin Moore seemed just a step late there. Right. They were like third down conversions where they were able to keep that drive alive. If Austin Moore, and again, I think in the second half, the defense did a better job of just going at their assignment. We might even have less total yards, Brian.
Absolutely. I'm going to bring this up here. Somebody pointed this out and said the pass rush seemed disappointing. I'm going to totally disagree with that. And I get what you're saying is the pass rush because they didn't get a ton of sacks. But if you Fifita was on the move all night long. And the thing about it was we were playing a ton of coverage, and which is what you need to do. And a lot of times, you guys know I hate rushing three guys, but we did for a lot of the game, but we were able to get him off his spot. And that's the thing. And I'm not saying he's not a great athlete and can't throw on the run, but we got him off his spot. We harassed him, And so while the numbers didn't seem big as far as the sack totals, it did to me. I thought the pass rush, and I was actually going to bring this up, I thought the D-line played great. I thought they did exactly what they were supposed to do. Keep him inside the pocket from running all over the place, and creating these, extra yards, quarterback kind of the hidden yardage. Keep him from doing that. and then harass him and get off his spot and then hit him when you have an opportunity. I thought the K-State D-line, Cole, did a great job of doing that all night long.
Was this a welcome to the Big 12 kind of moment for Arizona for a physicality standpoint?
Hey, Cole. Hey.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Because
Cole, since you didn't see the game, you're just looking at stats.
Yes.
I gotta know from you. We talk all off season, right, about the Ryan Davis, the Jordan Allen, Tobias Nsami. Who do you think was the guy that in my opinion, was the most relentless tonight and probably the biggest difference maker on the D-line?
Well, I'm assuming that this question is going to be someone who I would not normally say. So I'm going to say, just based off of the progression of the defensive lineman and who I feel like is going to get the most snaps moving forward, my answer would probably be Ryan Davis, because I know he's had some games that he's been putting together, and I feel like he's on the verge of breaking out. So from a young defensive end standpoint, I'm going to say Ryan Davis. From a veteran defensive end standpoint, I'm going to say Brendan Mott, because he's old, reliable, and I did see that he got the only sack.
Brendan Mott was all over the place. He
Bingo.
was all over.
Brendan Mott. He was unreal tonight.
Yes.
He was unreal. I mean, he was everywhere. And they rotated in. You saw Toby. You saw Cheedy was in there a lot. You saw Ryan Davis. Travis Bates had himself another good game. But, like, Brendan Mott was – Brian, this was the type of performance from Brendan Mott that was like, hey, I'm here. Don't forget about me, right? Like, absolutely. He was tremendous tonight.
Yeah, he was good. So, look, let's dive into, not being negative, but a little nitpicky on some of the things that we saw that Kansas State didn't do well. Look, the big eyesore, obviously, into the half. Can't happen, Ryan. Unexcusable on every level at the end of the half that happened. Look, in a tighter game, which, again, at the time, it was 14-7, but in a closer game down, those are basically points that we gave away by literally just by not calling a timeout. Call a timeout, get everybody settled, figure out what you're going to do, but not doing that, and then quarterback not being aware of how much time's left. It was just a total – I don't even know what you want to call it. It was just a total flub, catastrophe, just something that you can't have happen.
I mean, admittedly, I kind of forgot where the time was on third down. Like, I saw Avery scrambling, and I wasn't even looking at the clock. So I can only imagine, a 19-year-old sophomore that's starting what his third game of the year. I don't think he was even thinking about the clock, and if he was, I think we all underestimated it, right? But I tweeted before the game with Fitz that I was going to keep it real on this thing, and I'm going to keep it real. I go back to, yes, maybe the coaching staff could have handled that better. Yes, maybe Avery Johnson could have handled that third down better. If you go back and you watch that 2nd and 10, right? Because they had first down was they tried to get the wheel route to DJ, and Avery threw it a little bit behind him. It wasn't a great throw. So they come back. It's 2nd and 10 in the red zone. And if you look, they had Dante Cephas lined up kind of in the line, on the line of scrimmage. I tweeted out the video of it, but if you go back and watch the replay, you can hear Avery. Fox's microphones picked it up like crisp as day. You can hear him hike the ball. Dante Cephas is at least a second late to get off the line.
Mm-hmm.
He goes out, and I don't know what kind of route he was running. It looked like he was kind of going towards the pylon, some kind of like post route, right? Because he's late getting off the line, for whatever reason, it looked like that was Avery's first read. Braden Lofton was kind of like underneath Cephas, but you could tell he was looking at Dante Cephas.
Right.
And because Dante's late, I don't know if he ran the right route. I don't know. Something went awry there. And that was like the second or third time that had happened with Avery Johnson and Dante Cephas. Avery has to step up in the pocket, and he ends up stepping right into a sack.
Right.
Guys, I want to give Dante Cephas the benefit of the doubt. He's put it on tape at the college level before, but I'm beginning to go back to what I was worried about at the beginning of August, which was when Chris Kleiman was asked about Dante Cephas, and the first thing out of his mouth was, we're having, we decided to simplify some things. We think it's going to make it easier on him. Blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing we were hearing at Penn State about him struggling to pick up the playbook, about him being like a step or two slow. I'm really beginning to think that this team is better with Trey Spivey. He's a better blocker. I think he gives you the same catch radius, the same athleticism. Dante Cephas, from what I've seen so far, and I hope he proves me wrong down the stretch because he has the ability to prove me wrong. But right now, Brien, he looks like a MAC receiver that was just a freak in the MAC that could get away with his athletic ability and maybe not being exactly where he's supposed to be, because through 3 games, he's done hardly anything. And the times that they've genuinely targeted him, Avery overthrew him once at the Tulane game, but the other ones, it seems like they're just not in sync at all, man. Cole, you said it in the Powercat podcast this week. This was a game offensively that guys were either going to play themselves into snaps or play themselves out of snaps. And to me, Dante Cephas tonight played himself out of snaps.
He has 1 catch on the season, guys. Dante Cephas has 1 catch on the season. And this was a guy that a lot of people thought was going to be the number 1 receiver, the number 1 option for Avery when he transferred in. I mean, obviously the offense is spreading the ball around to their tight ends, I think a little bit more than maybe we all put stock in. I think coming into the season, everybody thought it was just going to be Garrett Oakley, and then maybe they would rotate in some Braden Lofton, some Will Swanson. But you know what? Avery seems to have a connection with those tight ends, especially in the red zone. And if you feel like that, Trey Spivey gives you a better option. The blocking is a really big thing that I think a lot of fans don't see. But you have to have a receiver who's willing to block, especially in K-State's offense that is predicated on running the football. And if you have a guy who is a better blocker than say Dante Cephas, well, if the skill level at catching the football, if the skill level is around the same when it comes to knowing the playbook, catching the ball, making plays, you're going to go with the blocker. That's why K-State trotted out the Seth Porters of the world. That's why Cade Warner had a role in this offense, is because they were willing to block. So if you're willing to block, you're going to see the field more. That's just how it is at K-State.
Well,
Trey Spivey can block.
They tried to get Cephas going early in the game. He dropped the ball. I mean, it's just they went to, I know you didn't see the game, Cole. They went to him. He was open. The ball was there. He dropped the football. So what else you want to do?
Twice.
We're trying.
Twice.
Yeah, he dropped it twice. I mean, they were trying to get him, and he was open. The ball was there. And it's like, and what you mentioned, Ryan, is that he put it out on tape. He did, but you mentioned it. It was at the MAC level. And as much as we don't want to say that, and we love everybody, and we do love everybody, at some point, you got to be able to put it out on this level. He never did that at Penn State. Hopefully he can get this thing turned around, because there's nothing that I would love more than for somebody to be able to prove us wrong in what we're saying. But all we're doing is talking about what we see, and everybody sees the same thing. It's got to get it figured out.
Hey, Brien, do you see? Yeah, there it is. I was going to say, pull that up.
Yes.
Look at
tonight
that.
was my first time in the student section, and my God, it was loud. Only Arlington in 2022 was potentially louder. Also, it could have been 40 plus. Yeah, it probably could have been. Look, when I watch the game, obviously I'm at home. I turn the sound as much as I can bear, and it was super loud. It was absolutely super loud. Yeah. I don't mess around with the sound. My wife understands it. My dog understands it. I'm turning the sound up as much as I can get so I can feel like I'm in the actual stadium. And it was rocking tonight in the Bill, ladies and gentlemen. It was absolutely rocking tonight in the Bill. I can't imagine what that student section was like.
Shout out to you, Matthew. Thank you for the super chat. By the way, we always appreciate those. I mean, the atmosphere that Bill Snyder Family Stadium has on a typical game day is pretty awesome. So when you throw in the fact that it's a night game, as we've already talked about, on national TV, I mean, how many people just took off the day from work and drove down to Manhattan? I probably had like 5 or 6.
Absolutely.
So many teachers at school today who are K-State alums were gone because they were going to be down in Manhattan. So, very cool. We always appreciate those super chats.
Cole, there were people tweeting there were people tweeting at like noon today about, I saw some folks from Topeka coming in town. And it was like talking about the house parties they were passing like mid-afternoon. I'm like, oh, this place is going to be freaking insane tonight. And Jason Shear, our counterpart over at 247 Arizona, wildcatauthority.com, he actually tweeted, I'm pulling it up. He says, I wasn't at the game tonight, but multiple people have texted me that the experience beyond the final score was awesome. And the people were great. Shout out K-State fans for that. So just an unreal environment. I wish I was there. I'm jealous. Had to watch it in the basement tonight. But, I mean, this was the type of showing, Brien, that we wanted to see in week 3. Whether you were in the stadium, whether you were at home, this was finally the K-State performance on both sides of the ball we were waiting for.
Absolutely. Got another super chat up here. Did you see that Avery didn't have the speaker? I don't know that he didn't. I know that some in the NFL helmet, you can see him in there. But I didn't really notice on whether he had it or not.
That's interesting. I'm going to have to go back when I watch the game, and it's probably something we all should go back and look for, because that was kind of something that we brought up on the podcast this week, was maybe some of the offensive issues were not necessarily communication issues, but hey, is there a way that they can simplify communication? That's interesting.
Right.
Willie.
I did see a couple, Cole, like the signs that the managers and stuff will have that have like the big, just like a number on it. Yep. I did see that late in the second half, and I hadn't paid attention to it earlier in the first half. So I don't know if he didn't have communication. I don't know if communication was if there was a hiccup there, or maybe they were using both. But yeah, that's an interesting. That was a good point out by Willie there. I hadn't really noticed it. I noticed it a little bit in the second half, but it'd be interesting to find out from Coach Kleiman if like something went awry there, or if that was just kind of a cover your own ass sort of thing. Like in case the speaker's not working, we've also got the sign. So I don't know. Interesting to find out.
Also,
got another super chat.
Yeah. We put it up at the same time, Big B.
I sell Corvette. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Sell them for $4.99.
My dream sports car. I don't know that I can fit in a Corvette anymore, but if you sell them, I would absolutely love to buy one. But you got to customize it. I'm too big, guys. I'm too big to get in the daggone Corvette anymore.
I think it says I sell Corvettes for $4.99. I think that's what that super chat means.
Aha.
Well, he says let's talk about what Fox talked about during the broadcast. I'd rather not. I'm about done with Tim Brando, guys.
Oh gosh,
I'm about done. I try and I'm usually like, stay, I'm Switzerland to those types of guys that are up in the booth. Like, they're here for a couple nights and then they leave or whatever. But like Brando is so smug about it. And it's like, well, I've got a 5 a.m. flight out of the metropolis of Manhattan. Like, we get it. Like, Manhattan's not good enough for Tim Brando. That's fine. We'd rather you not come back, Tim.
Yes.
Like, send anyone else. I like Devin Gardner tonight, Brien. But if
he was
they want
good.
to pair him with somebody else, I'm fine with it. Put Devin Gardner with somebody else.
Brando is, he's been doing it forever. And he always comes up and he says stuff. And I was watching it with another former K-State guy, Chris Claiborne. Me and him are best friends, and my wife are best friends. So we're watching it together, and he's talking about stuff that's actually not happening. Like, oh, that was a good cross buck. And I'm like, that wasn't a cross buck. What are you talking about? We're just laughing. I'm like, this guy's just saying anything because half the people don't know what he's saying and just think, oh, man, he's coming up with something great. I'm like, they haven't run crossbuck stuff since the mid-90s, man. Get out of here with this nonsense. It was insane. I just can't stand him. Look, he's fine. Put him in the Hall of Fame, but leave him in the Hall of Fame. Don't let him out.
Yeah.
Don't let him out anymore.
Cole, there was a point in the game tonight where he tried to make the case that Desmond Purnell was NBA flopping when Desmond Purnell got turned 180 degrees by his jersey. And he was like questioning the holding call. I was just like, what game are you watching? Like, you do this on a weekly basis? And that's your Tim Brando. Tim Brando, man.
Tim Brando. So this is funny. First of all, we got to put another super chat up here. We're on fire tonight, boys.
Yep.
Thank you, Will. I think there's plenty of people who are out of state who enjoyed the game tonight. I guys, I have a confession. I lied. I watched probably the last 5 minutes of the game. I got in the car. I was sitting in the back seat as we were sulking about the high school loss, and I just didn't listen to anybody. And I was watching the last 5 minutes of the game. The K-State Mount Rushmore graphic, did they just put that up? Had that been something that was promoted? I mean, the Mount Rushmore graphic I thought was crazy because, first of all, the first guy left Michael Bishop off of
that was Brando.
That was Brando. He left Michael Bishop off. Thankfully, Devin Gardner being the quarterback put him on. But yeah, interesting graphic and an interesting broadcast, obviously, with Mr. Brando.
We got another super chat. So no speaker, I noticed in the second half, obvious empty helmet ear sections compared to Fafita. So I think it was right this week about too much convo. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, they cut it off after 15 seconds. Look, they do it in the professional ranks. And they're not going to do it at the pro level if it doesn't help. That much I know for a 100% fact. So if they can do it at the pro level and it can help, they can absolutely figure out a way in the college level and make it work. Here's one that I want to bring up here, just a question. Cat's best win since. Now, look, I don't want to dismiss this win, but we don't know how good Arizona is. So before we think that this is just it's a super win. Look, I think it's a better win because of the circumstances, not because of who we played. I think it's a better win for the program because it was on a Friday night. It was on Fox. The whole nation got to watch the football game. I think that's why it's a good win. Not necessarily. Now, again, we could see, and Arizona might run off a whole bunch of wins, but from what we've seen from Arizona this season, including this game, they haven't looked like world beaters at all. So, again, I like the win, and I think the game was bigger because of the circumstances, but I don't want us to get too caught up in thinking, oh, this is such a spectacular win when I'm not sure how good Arizona actually is.
Is it fair to say that this game might actually end up the Tulane game could potentially, when we look down the line, could be more of a better win than the Arizona game? I mean, depending obviously on how Tulane's season finishes the rest of the year, they got a pretty big game tomorrow, but I had those questions about Arizona coming into tonight. I think those questions for Arizona are still there. I don't know if that Arizona team is more than an 8-win team at this point.
Right.
So is Tulane going to be better than that? I don't know. But yeah, I think it's a big win because it builds momentum and you continue and you kind of right the ship, right? That's literally, it kind of eases the waters for fans and maybe even some people inside of the program that were not necessarily doubting, but wondering, okay, well, how good are we? You go out and you put a whooping on a team. You build some more momentum to where you can go back on the road next week against a struggling BYU team. And then you get to come back and have the biggest game of your season in what could be a potential Big 12 title game preview against Oklahoma State. So you felt like if you won this game that you were going to have a special season. And I think that feeling is still there. And so, yeah, I think that's why this win's important.
Ace in the hole, I'll give it to you. Since you want an answer, I won't duck you. I will say it's the best win since the Big 12 championship in 2022. That's obvious. The upset of top 10 Oklahoma State in 2022, which was the 48-0 win. You could make that argument. I'll say this. I thought this was the most impressive in terms of like front to back, offense to defense. I'll go the 2019 upset of Oklahoma, top 5 Oklahoma. I think this was that level of performance. I agree with Big B because that Oklahoma team was, I mean, to do what they did against that Oklahoma team was really impressive. I don't know if this Arizona team is going to end up living up to the hype, but I do think there are several NFL guys on this team, and to completely blank them after the first opening series, I will say it's up there, top 3 signature climb and win at K-State.
I mean, I think it's a good win.
Right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it was a bit more on the circumstances. We'll see. Like I said, we'll see what happens with Arizona. They're a little beat up, but I mean, football teams get beat up. That's part of football. I mean, if you don't have the depth, that's part of what we at K-State felt for a long time, not having the depth. And if one guy goes down, things go downhill. Well, I'm sorry. I don't feel sorry for teams that don't have depth because nobody felt sorry for us. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Nobody ever felt sorry for K-State for not having the depth. So that just is what it is. But to be honest with you, I hope Arizona does turn out to be a good team. I do. I want them to win a lot of games. Now, granted, this wasn't a conference game. I want them to win a lot of games because it'll just mean that this win gets bigger and bigger and bigger moving forward.
Wally, you're drinking the purple Kool-Aid. This is very much unlike
I'm trying to pull them up. Hang on. Here we go. No, right? Yeah. So kind of ponying off what Big B just said. They've got at Utah, but they've got a bye week. So Arizona's off next week. Then they're at Utah, Texas Tech, at BYU are their next three. We'll see with a bye week. Maybe they beat BYU or Utah, excuse me. And then what? Texas Tech, BYU, Colorado, West Virginia, in Tucson, at UCF, Houston, TCU, and Arizona State. Big B's right. Like this might end up being the type of resume kind of building win that K-State needed. It might not. Yeah. It might. You would really like them to beat Utah, but I think even if they lose to Utah, I think the pieces are there for this team to still finish well above 500.
Oh yeah, I think they're a good football team. Or they at least have the pieces to be a good football team. We'll see what happens. But again, coming into this league, people can talk about how good the Pac-12 was last year. But again, it was a good league. Don't get me wrong. A little top heavy. But did they play the physicality like they play in the Big 12? The answer is no. And I think Arizona got a big taste of what physicality looks like. And also, it was good for Kansas State to play this physical, because people had questioned it. We had questioned how good the offense could be. We had questioned the play calling. We really had questions about the defense and what they could do, and I just think we answered a lot of those questions tonight, but it's just an answer to one test. And we've got a bunch of tests left, and we've got some bigger ones coming up down the road, and we got to have some answers. So while it's a good win, it's just one of many. It's just one of many, people, and we're just getting started. I think we had to open up the offensive playbook to win this game tonight. We did that. But, Ryan, I'll be honest with you, my man. I still think we're at 45%. I don't think we're anywhere close to what this offense can actually open up. I think we're at a maximum. I think we're at 45%. I don't think we're anywhere close right now to what they have and what they can do.
Well, let's look at something here. And I just got out. Let me go back into it because I wanted to pull up the stats from tonight. Because Cole, you'll find this interesting, and it goes exactly in line with what Brien was just saying. You think about it. Jace Brown had a nice night. He had 3 receptions for 60 yards. Still didn't score a touchdown. But the next leading receiver was Braden Lofton with 3 for 45 and a touch. And after that, it's like Keegan Johnson with 2 catches for 22 yards. I barely remember Keegan Johnson making a catch in this game. Like, it was the quietest 22 yards ever. Like, Garrett Oakley has yet to assert himself. And we all know what Garrett Oakley can be. I think all 3 of us are big Garrett Oakley fans. And they've barely gotten him involved yet. To me, that's nothing indicative on Garrett Oakley. That's not a negative. That, again, goes to what Big B's saying of, like, they haven't unlocked things. Keegan Johnson has barely been unlocked this season. I think Dante Cephas, again, might be playing his way out, and you might see Trey Spivey working his way in. Dylan Edwards, I'll be honest, if I got to critique the offense on one thing, it might be that Dylan Edwards still didn't see the field, I think, as much as he should. It was better tonight. Still not as enough as I think it could be and should be. There was the pass to I tweeted about it. There was the pass to Braden Lofton that I think set up one of the touchdown runs. It was a short kind of like within the 5-yard line, Big B, but it was set up by the Braden Lofton catch. And I think he went out of bounds like inside the 5. It was because Connor Riley sent Dylan Edwards in motion to that side. And you literally saw the defense just suck up. Like, oh, here comes Dylan Edwards. And Avery just dropped a beauty to Braden Lofton right over the top. And Braden ended up going out, like I said, outside or out of bounds inside like the 5. But like, that would be my one kind of nitpick of the offense is like, we'd still like to see Dylan Edwards. But again, going back to your point, as I ramble here a little bit, like Jace Brown really hasn't had a Jace Brown type game like we saw from last year. Keegan Johnson still really hasn't had a coming out party, so to speak. Maybe Dante Cephas has one moving forward. We'll see. Dylan Edwards, outside of the kick return, the punt return, hasn't really had his coming out party. Like we've gotten by. We're sitting 3-0, and we can say DJ's had a really good game. I would say Avery had a really good game tonight. And you know what I mean? Like there are so many playmakers that have yet to be unlocked for this offense. Tonight, to me, Cole, if you go back and watch the game, Cole, this was as much about Connor Riley finding himself tonight as it was about any particular offensive player. I think he's finally starting to figure out what makes this offense go, what makes everybody tick. And as Brien said, I think this is just the beginning. Tonight was just the start of what this offense can be. I still don't think it's going to be Art Briles, Lincoln Riley, Avery's going to New York, Heisman, we're going to put up 600 yards, blah, 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 blah. It's not going to be that. It's still going to be the kind of North Dakota State, K-State style offense that you think, but with more explosive playmakers. They're getting there.
What's amazing, guys, is that they're able to do this and figure this out this identity on offense with the hardest non-conference that Chris Kleiman has had since he's been here. I mean, I think that's
very true.
That's pretty much a fact at this point. And it's the hardest non-conference K-State's had that I can remember. 2 of the 3 games, you're like, if they play bad, they'll lose. That just wasn't the case, with some of the previous non-con games. And it says a lot that they haven't even used the weapons to their biggest and most fullest of their capabilities. And they're still finding ways to win like that. I mean, it's scary for opponents. It should be scary for defensive coordinators of other teams. And it's a great thing for this K-State offense. I mean, we can sit here and talk all night about how important this win was, but the fact that they were able to get the win, and again, we still have yet to see the full potential of the offense. I mean, that can be a negative, but I think honestly, guys, it's more of a positive because again, that just means on any given night, one player has the capability to beat you, and that is the last thing that opponents want. That's the last thing opponents want.
Well, here's the thing, and
Avery
had 156 yards passing tonight, and he missed several throws. Just think about that. He missed several throws out there.
He did,
and
he did.
Just say he hits on half of the ones that he missed on. And when I mean miss, I mean he missed the throws. If he hits on half of those, what does the offense look like? Does it keep another drive alive? Does somebody break a tackle and go another 15 yards or something like that? So, he's still getting better. We're just scratching the surface. I think that would be my only nitpick is that we got to keep progressing in the passing game because, like I said, Avery missed some throws, but maybe it's a product of sometimes maybe guys aren't in the right space. We just talked about Cephas dropped 2 balls. I mean, he did. I mean, he flat out dropped 2 of them. So we'll see what happens moving forward. I like what I see. I like the progression. We just got to keep going in the right direction.
Big B, Cole, I don't want to do this because I texted a buddy of mine earlier today, and I'm like, man, I've got a really good feeling about tonight, but like it would be so K-State to just go out and lay an egg against BYU. Like that would be to just to just do it on national television to Arizona, embarrass them, exactly what we saw tonight, and then go and flat lay an egg at 9:30 kickoff next week at Provo in the altitude against a team that you should beat.
It's going to be the end of the first quarter. I shouldn't be doing this.
A
week from today, by the way. It's going to be only the end of the first quarter at this exact time. Are you ready for a nap?
I should not be doing this, but I do it every year. I'm kind of like, well, I start looking ahead, and I hope the team isn't doing this. But guys, fellas, we start looking ahead. You get by BYU. If Oklahoma State, granted they got to beat Tulsa on the road tomorrow, if they can come back on the 21st and get a win in Stillwater against Utah, and it's not easy, you are looking at 2 undefeated teams on week 5, September 28th, Oklahoma State at K-State. And if you go and look at the schedule for that week, the only other game I think that would be even remotely tantalizing to College Game Day would be Georgia at Alabama. And that's a massive one. But who's to say they don't go to Alabama or Georgia before that in the next couple weeks?
I mean, if Alabama loses tomorrow, then I would say that's a possibility. But if not, it's ESPN, man. There's no chance that they're going to come. Georgia and Alabama, there's no shot. No shot. Now again,
Alabama.
I got Abe. I got the Corvettes. I got Tom Terrible. I will not shut up about this. I can't.
Yeah,
fellas, I can't. We are so close here, folks. We are so close.
As much as I would love it, let's just be. It's Georgia and Alabama. There is no shot that they are coming to Manhattan. Don't get me wrong. I would love it because I don't buy into the myth that we don't play well with game day. Look, I was there the first game day. We played just fine, So I don't believe in that. But having said all of that, yeah, if Alabama loses, maybe. Who knows? Who knows?
Hey, Jeffrey Silva, he points it out that ABC's already got Georgia and Alabama. It's a possibility that if you're not going to be game day, you could still be big noon kickoff.
I don't want to. I would rather play. The night slot on Fox.
I'm just throwing it out there. I've probably jinxed it. Somebody has just clipped me for like 2 weeks from now, and I have now jinxed it. But I don't know. Like this team is Cole. You're right. Like I'm not a Kool-Aid drinker. I wasn't a Kool-Aid drinker to begin the season. Like I kind of had this team going 9 wins, but like so it's weird like how everything is playing out. It's like a lot of what we have talked about behind the scenes in the offseason, right? We were like, this offense probably isn't going to be as good as fans want it to be, but this defense is damn good.
Yep.
And if the defense can come together and give the offense some time, which it has, give or take Tulane, actually it was the offense that kind of picked up the defense for Tulane. Like things are going to be fine. And I also go back to this, Big B, and I don't want to do this on September 13th, 2024 either, but I'm texting again with some buddies tonight, and I'm like, guys, if you like what you see tonight, you think about some of the pieces that are coming back in 2025.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want to do it. I shouldn't be talking about it in September. We still got however many games of the season left, but like, God, it's hard not to think that far ahead and go, Jesus, this team is got the pieces. Like Chris Kleiman has built this thing Bill Snyder-esque, right, Brian? Like it's, 97 built off 98, built off 99. Like it just, you get that kind of momentum thing and it just rolls.
The thing that we talked about, and I mentioned it earlier tonight, is the depth. I'm just not sure the last time that K-State had the type of depth that they have currently right now. And that's what Coach Snyder was able to do. Now, how he did it was a little bit different, with where he recruited and how he recruited and the players where he got them. But the amount of depth that were on, look, I'm not the, hey, back in my day type of guy, but, back in that time, the depth was insane. There were guys that were on a third string that ended up playing 8-9 years in the NFL. Now I'm not saying that this team has that type of depth, but it does have depth. It's just something that we just are not used to. We haven't seen in a while. And that's what we always feared, because if one guy got hurt, which it's football, a guy always gets hurt, then it was like, oh my goodness, the season's over and we didn't know what to do. It's just not the case anymore. It's just not the case. Ryan, you're 100% right. Coach Kleiman has built this thing to where it's sustainable. It's basically the exact opposite of what Colorado is. It's sustainable. Yeah. We've got, pieces, several different pieces at different places. So, because again, football, unfortunately, is a game where bones break and ligaments tear. It just sucks. It absolutely sucks. But it's reality. But your season doesn't have to be over now if somebody happens to go down, which in years past, that's happened to K-State.
Well, I mean, Big B brings up, I'm glad you brought that up, because we hadn't talked about it to this point. I want to talk about it for somebody like Cole that hadn't watched the game yet. You talk about depth. Hadley Panzer did play tonight, and I thought he played the best game of the season so far. I think the ankle was bothering him the first 2 weeks. He was more like typical Hadley Panzer tonight. But Cole, we've talked about Dante Cephas, big time transfer that just hadn't really panned out. Easton Kilty, big time transfer, has not really panned out. And as Big B said, they played John Pastore a crap load tonight. I don't know what the final snap count was. I will get on PFF in the morning and figure that out. But Cole, John Pastore played a ton in this game. And we're moving into week 4, and I'm wondering if John Pastore isn't the best option for K-State right now at left tackle. Like that kind of, again, depth that you didn't see in the past, where you could have a position as important as left tackle come in as a backup guy that hasn't seen a lot of reps and play as well as John Pastore has. Credit to Connor Riley for the development. Credit to Chris Kleiman and his staff for the recruiting.
Well, it's one of those things, guys, to where that's a good issue to have. If a guy is underperforming and you have a backup that can go take his place, that's good. I mean, that's competition makes everybody better, because guess what? There's a good chance they put Pastore in, and they will need to rely on Easton Kilty at some point during the season. That's just how it works. When you have depth, everybody gets better. And so if Pastore pushes Kilty and takes his job, that's good, because that means the team's getting better. It's not because he's that bad. It's because Pastore's that good.
That good.
Yeah.
Yep.
No. Well, look, I'm going to put a bow on this thing. I look, there's a lot that you can talk about that was really good about this football game. I'm never the Debbie. Well, I take it back. I can be the Debbie Downer person, but not tonight. There just wasn't a whole lot to nitpick. I mean, I think we covered it, fellas, as far as what could go, what wasn't great, but it didn't kill us because we were so good in so many other areas. Another thing that we didn't mention was a clean game by K-State. It was a clean game. As Arizona
Super
had
clean.
A ton of penalties, a ton of not questionable penalties either. Sometimes people can say, "Oh man, the refs, golly, they were called." Well, no, they were holding like crazy, and they called it. I mean, it's just there wasn't any questionable penalties out there that you're thinking, "Oh, this could go either way." We didn't turn the football over, and I understand that we are a disciplined team, and so that's going to be on our side. That's a great thing. But yeah, not a lot to nitpick about tonight, Ryan. Clearly, K-State can get better. I mentioned we can get better in the passing game. We can do a better, like you mentioned, the run fits early on. I think a lot of guys were more concerned about possibly getting into drops and stuff like that. And so when they actually did run the ball, it's like you mentioned, Ryan, there were maybe a half step too slow and guys were getting around the corner. So, but we fixed it. I know that for an absolute fact. It got fixed. So to me, an outstanding performance by Kansas State, won in all phases. We just kind of glanced over the punt return too for a touchdown. I mean, we just glanced over. Everything else was so good that we just bypassed.
Ty Bowman, the block. Unreal. Donovan McIntosh had one that I think really kicked it off. And he did a great job. It was very close to being a block in the back. It wasn't. He did a great job. And then Dylan Speed took him all the way up to Ty Bowman, and Ty Bowman's block was tremendous. I mean, I cannot say enough about what Ty Bowman has meant to this team on special teams through 3 weeks. It is insane. Like, folks got to put some respect on number 8 from Chanute, because he's been tremendous. I mean, he's been awesome. But you're right, Big B. We've completely glossed over that. And it was it was the difference maker tonight. I mean, that was the difference-making play. Yep.
Got us started. It literally got us started. I know we're spoiling the whole game for Cole. I apologize, Cole. But yeah, it got us going. We scored the touchdown and kind of went, and we stopped them, which again, that was another Tim Brando thing. Oh, they haven't even stopped them. And I'm like, we ran a touchdown back on a punt return. What are you talking about, Brando? It's like, oh my God, this guy. But either way, I just thought it was a really good performance. Something to build on. I think we're just scratching the surface. I think we can get a lot better. But the physicality is what I really like tonight, guys. I just love the way that both sides of the line just played physical against a team that I think thought they could come in and push us around. I'll be honest with you. The way that Arizona ran the football in the first 2 games, I think they believed that they could just come and push us around, and that just was not the case, Ryan. Not at all.
Not at all. I mean, like I said, I would put this up there. Again, I don't know if it'll hold, but I'm talking right now as we sit here at 11:30, about to log off. This is, to me, a top 3, top 5 climbing, like, signature type of win. This is a win that you go back and look at in terms of offensive and defensive balance. It was all there. Special teams at that, give or take the Chris Tennant missed field goal. You'd like to see that get corrected, but again, we're like really nitpicking here to find some things that didn't go wrong after a week that was just abysmal,
right,
for the most part in New Orleans. So so much that can go from here. I'm super intrigued. I'm also intrigued for anybody that's still live with us in the comments and those that'll tune in later. Fellas, I won't be back next week, but I don't know. Shoot, maybe I will. But I won't be like here as a guest host, so to speak. You guys aren't going to stay up till like 3 a.m. and do this thing live, are you? Surely not.
No, we're doing it. We're doing it. Now, look, I'm going to take a nap during the day. I'm going to take a nap right before kickoff. I'm going to get a nap at halftime.
Y'all are crazy.
But we got to step.
Y'all crazy.
9:30. Oh my God. I mean, look, I'm in bed. Have been asleep by that time. Oh my goodness, it's going to be terrible. But you know what? It's on the weekend. I'm just going to have to live a little. It is what it is.
Go right ahead.
Oh my goodness. It's going to be crazy. But you know what? I think it'll be a good game next week. I think BYU is one of those teams. They got into the league, understood how physical it was, and they changed their entire approach on how they're playing football. They've changed it. Look, I'm not going to say SMU is great. We're going to find out about Wyoming tomorrow. I don't think Wyoming's any good. Matter of fact, I know they're not any good. But the game is in Laramie, so any game in Laramie can always be tough. Having said any of that, I just think K-State goes up there and handles business, man. They have to. I like this. Nothing good happens after 2 a.m. You're daggone right it doesn't.
Is that Bill Snyder? Is that Bill Snyder?
2 a.m.
It might be.
Bill Snyder hiding behind 2 IQ plays? That sounds like something. That sounds like something Coach Snyder would have told you guys, Brian.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure he told us that. It wasn't 2 a.m. It was like 11 p.m. Nothing good happens after 11 p.m. Get home. Oh man. Any last thoughts about the game tonight, fellas?
I'm ready.
Not really. I mean, again, I would just harp on what you said, Big B and Cole. When you watch it, the depth, it was a balanced offensive and defensive attack from K-State, but the amount of depth that comes in, I mean, there was constant rotation. I think they just ended up wearing down Arizona, but I also think that they really flexed and kind of showed in a national spotlight against the top 20 team that we're not just our starting 11 on both sides. We can go a lot deeper than that and be big time difference makers. This was what the doctor ordered.
Yeah. It's exactly what what the doctor ordered. You're exactly right, Ryan. Just physical football and getting out there and getting after it. Letting them, hey, they had a star player. I get it, but that guy's not going to beat K-State. He's just not, and what he does, not going to beat K-State. And they couldn't do anything else. So for the most part, after that first drive, they got nothing. So, but we're going to shut this one down for the evening. I appreciate everybody. Well, we appreciate everybody being in here, man. What is there? 2,100 people, over 2,100 people in here, man. That is nuts. I appreciate everybody being in here. Remember, if you haven't subscribed to Go Powercat yet, remember to go subscribe, like, follow, hit the notification bell, leave the comments, all that good stuff, man. We appreciate you. Big win for K-State tonight. Big win. Could be the springboard to a really special season. We will see you guys later.